Payrolls up 4.8 million, climbing to over 11%. So let's just look at this for a moment. Jobless rate at 11.1%. That's a drop, so that's a positive. But remember, Savannah, this is a very confusing time because June is when we saw the country start to reopen. All 50 states had some level of reopening, so it's a big positive to see this much hiring across the board. However, this is a confusing number because remember, June is when the country was really starting to feel pretty good. We weren't seeing the coronavirus raging like we are now. So factor in what we've seen in even the last few days. Some states putting more restrictions on companies like Apple reclosing their stores. So it's a big positive that we saw this much hiring, better than expected in the month of June. But don't take that to the bank just yet. All of this is telling us this is a complicated time.
Absolutely. So we have the June payrolls that continuing this trend, a positive trend, because May was down unexpectedly and now we drop again to 11.1%. But as you mentioned, these are the numbers that reflect June, the month that was, which was also the month when much of the country had started to reopen. Now we do see this change where coronavirus has come back strong, certainly in the South and the West, and we're starting to see pauses or reversals of some of these reopenings, including in New York City, including Texas, Florida, California. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how this plays out over the next few weeks, Stephanie.
And I would just remind you, we're coming from such a low place that even if we reopen to 25 or 50% capacity, that's a big positive because we weren't seeing much hiring, think about no hiring basically, in the months of March and April. So it's a positive that we're moving up. We're up from the lows, but it's a long climb ahead. As you said, New York, it was just last night that the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, said we're going to put a pause on reopening inside dining and restaurants. It's a rocky reopening.
It is. Let's go to Peter Alexander at the White House. This number will be watched closely there, of course. And this month, July, puts a big question before Congress, Peter, about whether or not to expand and extend those unemployment benefits that were given during the pandemic.
Yeah, Savannah, you're right. Watch the president's Twitter feed. I suspect we'll hear from him about this number in the not too distant future. Obviously, the White House and the president will be touting this, acknowledging all the caveats that you've noted, that this is what they call a lagging indicator, meaning that a lot of it doesn't include what we've seen in recent weeks, that reopening being rewound in many states. But 4 months away, the president has been really leaning in on the economy, trying to push for these states to reopen. It's seen trying to cast the virus in the best possible terms, doing so again yesterday, saying he hopes at this point it's going to, in his words, disappear. The polls have consistently shown that the president has an advantage as it relates to the election over the former Vice President Joe Biden on the economy, but that edge has been evaporating in some recent polling, with the U.S. falling into a recession. And within the last 24 hours, as you note about what may happen ahead, the president said he supports another round of direct payments to Americans, like those checks this spring, up to $1,200 for individuals. He says he'd back another stimulus package from the federal government as long as it's done, in his words, properly. The president, though, does appear to be opposing any continuation in that bump in unemployment benefits, $600 a week, that expires this month. Instead, Savannah saying he wants to create an incentive to work, but obviously for millions of Americans, that's just simply not possible right now.
All right, Peter Alexander at the White House, thank you so much. And more on the top line, the U.S. economy adding 4.8 million jobs in June, which brought the unemployment rate down to 11.1%, reflecting what was happening as the nation was reopening in June. We're going to have a lot more coverage throughout the day on MSNBC and NBC News Now. Most of you now return to the Today Show. I'm Savannah Guthrie in New York, and this is